I'm definitely excited. My heart's racing.
Yes, welcome. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Startup Grind. Tonight is a very special evening. I'm your host, Katie Zeppieri, and I am really proud and honored to be here with you and to be moderating tonight's conversation. We have a phenomenal guest lined up for tonight, and I'm going to give him an official bio introduction shortly. But first off, I want to thank the organizations who are hosting tonight's event and helping make it happen, which is the Spark Center, which I'm in right now, actually, and proud to be a client of the Spark Center, as well as the Business Advisory Council of Durham, the BACD. Thank you so much for continuing to put on and host these Startup Grind Durham events. They're just like a pick-me-up, I feel like, every month. We get to hear from an inspiring and notable figure, learn about their journey. And I think like more than ever, as we are separated and, in this virtual world in so many ways, we really need these human stories of connection to remind ourselves of what's possible for our lives, to pick us up, to give us some things to think about, maybe in a different way than we had thought about them before, and so much more. And so tonight, I really want to encourage you as you're participating in this conversation to use the chat, because this is our way to, feel like you're close, almost as if you're sitting in the seats right in front of us. And so please, if there's a quote from tonight that really stands out to you, if there's questions on your mind, put them in the chat, and we'll be sure to cover them and include them. And really, this is a conversation. That's what tonight is. And we're all having it together, which is awesome. So I want to mention that today and this week is a special week. It's Do It in Durham. And Do It in Durham is celebrating entrepreneurship, which I think is phenomenal. So whether you're a new entrepreneur or you've been at this for a while, a business owner, really just encouraging you in your own journey. This year, we have over 30 virtual events to inspire you to relaunch, reimagine, and recover your small business. And it really is a challenging time for entrepreneurs. And I think that story or that idea of being resilient as an individual ties so much into being a business owner or an entrepreneur, and that sort of experience as well. It's been a challenging time. COVID has brought so many new challenges to all of us. And so, tapping into ways where we can continue to cultivate that resilience is so important. Now, in its 8th year, Do It in Durham event series takes place during Global Entrepreneurship Week. Guys, this is an epic week and is Durham Region's own forum to celebrate, inspire, and support entrepreneurship. This week is a collaboration of Durham's business support, educational, and networking organizations who have come together to encourage economic growth in Durham region. So virtual round of applause to thank all of our amazing partner organizations who are really making tonight happen. Now, to introduce tonight's guest. Now, I have had the privilege of hosting, several Startup Grind Durham events, and tonight's is a unique one. And when I heard about Anthony's story, and I know many of you here tonight are here because you want to hear from Anthony directly, his inspiring story. I was just so excited for this conversation because Anthony's story is one of resilience and persistence and perseverance. And I just feel like that is the kind of message that we need right now more than ever. It's an interesting time, of course, with the global pandemic. Then on top of that, we have so many social issues happening in the world. We're in the middle of, a really massive civil rights movement with politics and the election taking place. And there's a lot of polarization happening in the world. And there's just so many layers of emotions, the struggles that individuals are facing, families are facing, businesses are facing right now. And, at the heart of all of those things, we're all asking ourselves, how can I make a difference during this time? How can I stay strong during this time? And I just am so excited to hear from Anthony and to learn more about his story, because I think there'll be some really powerful lessons for us to take away. So in 2009, at the age of 21 and with a promising career as an athlete, Durham Region's Anthony Lue's life was suddenly and brutally changed forever. While at work at a scrap metal yard, he was crushed inside a vehicle and hoisted 15 feet into the air by a crane operator, then dropped to the ground. Extracted from the vehicle by firefighters using the jaws of life, Anthony was airlifted to Sunnybrook Hospital in Toronto, where he underwent surgery to stabilize his critically injured back, an injury that left him as a T9 paraplegic. Where some might have thrown in the towel, Anthony Lue chose to take up the ultimate challenge and is currently working towards representing Canada in hand cycle racing at the next Paralympic Games. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Anthony Lue.
How's it going?
Oh my goodness, Anthony, talk to me. How has life been for you right now in the middle of happening? What's going on in your world?
Well, it's funny that I'm literally actually getting over being kind of sick. Over the past week, it's been hell, to tell you the honest to God truth. It was one of those things where I just wasn't paying attention to my body, and it came back at me with a vengeance. And so now I'm just literally getting back up on my horse. I started training today, so I had a month off the bike. I'm sure we'll get to that a little bit later, but things are really starting to ramp back up, and I've just really been super excited waiting for this chat with you.
Oh, amazing. Yeah. So I was like, okay, this is great to see. Like, you know, Anthony's been training for the Paralympic Games, and my heart breaks when I think about the athletes who have spent so much time training for 2020, and then now the games have been postponed to 2021. At what point did you find out about this sort of change, and what was your reaction to that postponement?
Well, I still don't believe that it didn't happen. It's still super weird. I can't believe it. When the thought of it possibly not happening came into my mind, I was just kind of like, well, that's just not possible. It's the Olympics, right? Like they're obviously going to have the Olympics kind of thing. So I kept training. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. My coach is kind of like, just stay the path, stay the course, keep training, and don't really worry about what else is going on. Those external factors, we can't do anything about it. So just focus on what you need to do. We have numbers you need to hit, and we'll see what happens, is basically what it was. But when the news was announced, it was kind of like a blessing in disguise for me.
Really?
Yes.
And why do you say that?
So basically, I'm trying to figure out how to explain this now. The sport of hand cycling is broken up into like 5 different classes, and it's based on your ability and your function as to what class you go into and where you race. So last year, at the end of the year, the very end of the year, I got bumped up a class to one of the fastest classes in the world. I was already in a super fast class, but this class was just a little bit faster. And on the bike, half a kilometer an hour is a lot. Could be 10, 15, 20 seconds, right? So being bumped up, all the standards, all the hard work that I had done in the previous class had got thrown out the window. And I didn't have really any time to do the new standards before the games in Tokyo. So I was kind of like, what's going to happen here? I knew I'd probably have like a very, very, very small chance to kind of skate through the window, but I didn't really know what was going to happen. And when they said that you got a little bit more time to train, get stronger, work on your diet, get a little bit faster, it was like, thank you, Jesus.
Wow. Okay. That's a really interesting perspective, right? Because it's like, you'd think in one hand, like, of course you're disappointed, but like immediately your reaction's thinking, I have more time to train.
Yeah, and I try and always find the bright side in every situation, because it helps me get through a lot of the crap. And it's just one of those things that it worked to my advantage, I'd say, for sure.
Wow. Okay. Now, for those of us who maybe are less familiar with paracycling, hand cycling, oh my gosh, it's a minion mug. Sorry.
Kevin.
that just made my night. That's great.
Sorry, it's Kevin's my boy. Like,
such a good movie and show and brand and all that stuff. I love that. That's great. I'm like, what was I saying? Please describe paracycling, hand cycling for those of us who are less familiar.
all right, so the sport of paracycling encompasses all disabilities. So it doesn't matter if you're missing a limb, if you're paraplegic, a quadriplegic, you've got a brain injury, you fall into the class of paracycling. And then hand cycling, a specific discipline, is what I do, and I pedal with just my arms. So it's the exact same kind of bike that you would ride, just upside down with one wheel in the front and two wheels in the back. And I'm a lot lower. I'm about 2.5 to 3 inches off the ground. My elbows barely clear the pavement on every revolution. I have the crank set right in front of my face. Actually, you know what? I can probably show you guys because my bike is literally right here.
Wow.
So I know the lighting's horrible right there, but you can kind of get an idea of how low it is. And yeah, it's all arms, 11 gears, 22 speeds. We average speeds of anywhere between 20 to 40 kilometers an hour, 50 kilometers an hour sometimes, depending on the terrain. Downhill, I've hit 94 kilometers an hour.
Oh.
Yeah, it's an absolutely amazing sport. And our distances range anywhere from 13 kilometers on the short end of like a time trial when we're racing against the clock to 65 kilometers at the Paralympic distance.
Okay. And you really are like almost like horizontal, right? Like it's kind of like that position.
Completely horizontal. The only reason you're up is so that you can see where you're going.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's like a pedal motion.
Yeah, it's just together and you just and you just keep on cranking.
So what muscle groups are like key to success in hand cycling?
Your biceps, your triceps, your pecs, a lot your lats down here. A lot of the smaller rotator cuff muscles are stabilizing your joints, your shoulders that are moving constantly like this. And the shoulders weren't meant to really push your body weight in speeds like this. For sometimes our cadence can be, in cadence is how many times you're spinning a minute, so revolutions at upwards of 110 to 115 times a minute. And your shoulders just weren't built for that. So your rotator cuff takes a lot of the wear and tear as well too. Your neck, because you're kind of looking to see where you're going. So all these muscles down throughout here get quite the strain. So massage, chiro, physio, all of that is absolutely huge.
Okay, and I'm really interested to learn a lot more about your training and sort of discipline and process for preparing for something like an Olympic Games. But I think it would be really helpful to kind of pull it back a bit and start a little bit earlier along in your journey and story so we all get a better sense of how you got to where you are today and how you have kind of like that mindset and that work ethic to push past and to train. Like athletic training, like hats off to you. That is like a full commitment, right? Like you're giving up well, not giving up, but you're changing your eating habits. You have like a very intense training schedule. And I can't wait to hear like a ton more about that. But let's pull it back. Who was Anthony as a child growing up? What was your upbringing like? What was your personality like growing up?
Well, Anthony, as a kid, I'd like to say was, I don't know, the best. He was just super happy. I honestly had an amazing childhood. I can't complain about anything. I grew up in Pickering, went to Valley Farm Public School. My mom, my dad, my sister grew up super modest, right across from the flea market that is no longer there anymore, like kind of like Pickering Parkway area, behind the recreation complex and stuff like that. So I I just love sports. You know, I grew up, my mom, my dad, my mom was the big sports junkie in the house, and she had boxes of trophies in the basement and plaques and medals. And so I just kind of grew up playing with these things. And my dad was always watching the Jays. And so it was just very naturally, I fell into sports. And baseball was probably my first true love.
Okay. Was that what your mom played? What was her sport of choice? What were those trophies for?
My mom's sports were, she was basketball and track. She did not play baseball. Yeah. But I think
saw your dad watching, and that sparked an interest in baseball.
Most definitely. And my mom said, like, we never really had the conversation, but in like a mini documentary that I did earlier this year, or got released earlier this year, she said when I was younger, I had a baseball and a bat in my hand, and I just threw the ball up and I hit the ball, and it went a couple houses away. And she's kind of like, all right, we got to put him in baseball. And that was when I was super young. So it was just kind of one of those natural transitions, I think.
Okay. So you started playing baseball. How old approximately do you think you were at that time?
Just probably about 6 or 7 years old, right around there. T-ball. Okay.
T-ball. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I also played T-ball.
Everybody did, I'm pretty sure. Back in our day, everybody played T-ball.
That's actually really true. Yeah, maybe it was like a trend at that point to put your kid in T-ball. Now it's like coding, you know, it's like the trend to put your kid in that. But you stayed with baseball longer than just your T-ball years. So how long did you play baseball, and did you start to incorporate some other sports into there as well?
So very early, I realized that I was a lot better than a lot of the kids on the field, and a lot of the other parents did, and my mom did. So I decided to go out for the Pickering rep team. And the first year that I went out for the rep team, I hope somebody's on here that was on that rep team. Probably not, though. I got cut, and I didn't make the team, and I was devastated because I remember going out there, and I knew that I was as good as those kids. And it was one of those things where people were like, I didn't make it, blah, blah, blah. And I was just kind of like, whatever, I'm going to show them. And I just had this fighter spirit in me, never kind of give up. And I was always watching these Disney movies of triumphant returns and stuff like this. So, you know, it was just kind of like one of those things you're going to have.
Time, Anthony. I love this. Yes.
So I made it back the next year. I made the team, and I ended up leading the Pickering Red Sox to an Ontario championship when I was like in grade 9 in my final year. So it was baseball is just one of those things that taught me a lot about life. Almost everything I know, I could say baseball has taught me a little bit of something about it.
Was there, you know, I think like in any sort of athlete's journey, one of the big forces, in addition to rather your family and friends, are your coaches. Was there a memorable sort of coach or moment with a coach along the journey that really taught you something or shared something that stuck with you?
Definitely. My first amazing coach that I had, his name was Mike Lufkins. And he's pretty well the reason I got into cycling today, paracycling, because although we played baseball, he was an avid cyclist and a firefighter. So he would ride to work as a firefighter, and ride home. And to me as a kid, I'd be like, what do you mean? Like, this just like boggles my mind. I'm like, you ride from Pickering to Scarborough, and then you work like a 12-hour shift, and then you ride back home when you're done. And I'm like, I don't get it. So he brought me out mountain biking because I was always riding my bike. Like, my dad loved buying bikes too. Like, maybe it's one of our hoarding tendencies, but I had so many bikes as a kid, and I loved just riding as fast as I could and seeing how big of a skid I could do down the street. Okay. So it was one of those, and then it was just, I guess, again, one of those natural transitions to everything else that I did: sports, speed, the bike. But Mike was the big major influence. So I started really mountain biking on my spare time, I guess you could say. In the summer, Coach Mike would come pick us up sometimes when we didn't have a practice or a game that day. So I'd go with him and his son, and we'd go hit some trails at Durham Forest or something like that. And yeah, he's like I said, he was probably the first big major influence in my life, and the reason why I cycle today.
Okay. I absolutely love hearing that, because, you know, sometimes I think, like teachers, coaches, it can feel like a really thankless job when you're in it, but just the impact. And it sounds like you still keep in touch today, or in each.
Not as much as I'd like to, but I keep tabs. I keep tabs.
Okay, well, that's so you started cycling. It wasn't like cycling was never something that you were doing before the accident. You actually were doing some mountain biking, some trails.
I rode my bike everywhere. I rode my bike to school, to parties, to my girlfriend's house, anywhere I could. I rode my bike anywhere, everywhere. That's how I stayed in such great shape.
Okay.
Every day I rode my bike. That's how I stayed in such great shape for like the long distance track that I did, for sure.
Now, how about you in school? What subjects were you excelling at? Were you involved in any clubs in school outside of sports?
So let's say, I'll put it this way. I was an amazing student, but I just never applied myself as all of my teachers on my report cards would say. I just like to chat a lot. I was always looking out the window at cars and trying to figure out like when the next game or practice was. And just, that's where my mind was always going. It's not focused on necessarily that stuff that was written on the blackboard, but I was able to get through, whether it was charming teachers or I'm not dumb, right? So I was able to do my work. I was able to get by just on the bare minimum, I guess you could say. So I didn't really excel in any subjects, and I really wish that I had, and I wish that I did, because I'm sure that I could be a little bit further ahead today, but it is what it is. It's just the way that I'm wired, I guess you can say. But
yep, the energy.
Yeah.
I find that a lot though, and it's interesting to hear like your story and so many others where it's like, school, academic success is just one, channel, one lane of success. There's so many other things. And I think sometimes it's easy to lose kids along the way because they're not excelling in one particular subject or many of the subjects. It does, we need to be tapping into what their unique sort of skill set is and what they are strong at and kind of encouraging that.
The skill set, and that's what it is, because it's not that I couldn't focus. It's just that I learned differently. Like, give me a video or something like this, pictures. I'm like, I'm in it. You got my attention that way. When I started working with my hands in the shop and going to, was it not Seneca, Centennial for auto mechanics, I was just like glued in. I was locked in. I'm like, this is amazing. Give me more. I just couldn't get enough. So I think it's finding what you love, what it is that makes you tick, and then figuring out how you learn as well too.
Okay. So you were T-ball, you were baseball all the way into grade 9. You had achieved some great success there. Probably got some trophies from the baseball years.
Yep.
Met Coach Mike. That influenced you to consider cycling, and you were doing that whenever and wherever you could. Very athletic person. At what point did track enter your life?
Track was kind of always there just because of my mom. I never really looked at it as something that I wanted to be like professionally good at, because I didn't see them making the big money that the baseball players made. So I was kind of like, I'm going to be a professional baseball player,
Had the business mindset, Anthony.
Yeah, and I wanted to be an outfielder too. Like, you sit there for like half the game, and sometimes you got to move. But it's and for everybody out there that thinks baseball is a lazy sport, you have no idea. It's extremely mental, and you have to be turned on all the time. So it's not like you're just sitting there doing nothing. It's a lot of what's going on up here. So I will say that. But track came into the picture probably when I was transitioning from Valley Farm to high school. I had an idea that I was going to go to Pickering High School because they had a better athletic program there, but all my friends were going to Pine Ridge. And when I received a package in the mail from Pickering High School that was outlining their athletes, the amazing things that they had done, the golds, the schools that they were going to, the scholarship offers that they had gotten, I was like, it's a no-brainer. I'm going to Pickering High School. And that's when track really took off for me, because I was good at track before. Like I'd come home with a stack of first ribbons like this, but there was the notoriety wasn't there. You were in elementary school. You're like 12, 13 years old. Like people knew who you were to an extent, but it's not like when you're in the States and you're getting blown up and put on TV and stuff like that. So, and I was in like baseball is where I made my fame in the paper and stuff like that at that age. So I didn't really care too much about track. But once I got to Pickering High School, things changed.
Okay. And in during this time, I want to also chat about your like home life. You've got what it sounds like to be such an amazing family. Talk to me about your family, siblings and structure. What does that look like?
So I have a younger sister. Her name is Markeisha. I absolutely love her. The age gap between us is about 4 years and like 9 months or something like that. She's my little everything. I love her to pieces. It was just the two of us growing up. So I always tormented her. I wanted a little brother, didn't get one. So I treated her like a little brother. I beat the crap out of her. We wrestled. I threw her across the room. She came back at me. She cried, and then she came back at me again. And so it was amazing. Our parents were great. They raised us extremely, extremely, extremely well. We were raised in the church, Christian Pentecostals, and with a very strong faith. So growing up, it was kind of like manners, respect, and a lot of church. There was times we were going to church like 3 times a week, and that became extremely controversial at one point in time in the household because, religion and sports and school, all that stuff gets very interesting, controversial. But it was one of those things where I had to kind of follow the path because I was just that kind of good. And for whatever the reason happened, my parents ended up separating going into like grade 8, grade 9. And it was me, my mom, my sister. My dad and myself's relationship kind of faded out for a few years. And then like we were still in touch. We talked and stuff like that. He would take us to school. But I guess, things happen between people, grown-ups, whatever the case is. And so it was a lot of my mom, and I feel sorry for her because I gave her hell. I honestly don't know if my dad would be alive if he had to deal with me every day like my mom had to deal with me and the trouble. Like he knows a lot of the things that I do or I did, but he still has no idea because a lot of people have an idea that I was this amazing saint throughout my whole life, and I definitely was not. So family, like my home life was amazing. I never needed anything. I never wanted anything. I was raised amazing. We didn't have the nicest of everything, but we had everything that we needed. So we had all the love we needed. We always laughed. We ran and chased each other around the house and did foolishness. And so it was great. It was absolutely great. And now my relationship with my dad is great. We hang out, we talk almost every day, and it's life couldn't be better, honestly. Really and truly, life couldn't be better now.
I'm seeing some family members popping up in this chat, and I love it. Markeisha came right in there. She's like, "Oh, hey." Thrown across the room here. Always beaten up, made me strong. Is Marcia your mom?
Yes.
Hi, Mom. Oh my gosh, we got all the Lues in the house. Give them some love, everybody. We got lots of love in this chat. I love this. This is like family, circle here. And your mom's saying food was great. You guys ate well.
Oh, you have no idea. No idea. We were spoiled. That's what we were spoiled with. Like some kids got shoes, they got clothes, they got PlayStations. We got food. Like we got 2 meats. So like, I don't know about some people, but this is a big thing for some people. Some people only get like starch or a carb and a meat. But like sometimes I'm getting 2 meats, rice, potatoes, and it's Tuesday. You think it's Thanksgiving, but we ate well. We ate very, very well at home. Love that. And obviously very important for athletes to be getting definitely eat, right? I was a growing boy. I needed to eat. I just crushed plates of food.
And you mentioned, and I don't know how much you want to go into this or how kind of relevant it is to the conversation, but you kind of mentioned, people had this idea of me, or they have this idea of me that like I was always like squeaky clean and like all of those sorts of things. And I'm speaking to you, Anthony, by the way. I'm also a person of faith. I'm also a Christian. So I completely relate to your journey of church and growing up and those sort of rules and lessons. And at some points in your life, they don't make a lot of sense, but sort of as you get older, they do, and they kind of like pull you back. But you mentioned that you weren't always a saint. What do you mean by that?
I got into some trouble. So basically what happened was when I was in grade 10, I won OFSA for hurdles and track. And basically that's like the biggest stage for track in pretty well Canada.
Or was it Canada? Okay.
I'd say Canada, because once you win OFSA, it really puts you on the map as one of the best athletes in the nation, because a lot of the best athletes come from Ontario. And that's just the way it kind of goes, right?
Competitive province, probably.
Yeah. So it was just one of those things. But the kicker about that race was I was injured. Like there was days at school where I was walking and I was literally limping and bringing my leg around because I was so injured from baseball, track, volleyball. What else did I do? I think there was one more in there, but I played Team Ontario baseball as well too. Yeah, and riding my bike to school and stuff like that, and it was crazy. So I decided to take the grade 11 year off, and when I took that year off, it was the first time in my life that I really had free time, and I was getting older. I don't know if I was able to sign myself out at that point, but I had a spare, and a spare was given to me because I was high performance, doing a lot of sports, and I needed extra time to do my homework. I need extra time. I was supposed to be doing my homework in this spare. Exactly. And I found myself just taking off and skipping school. And then my other class after the spare was gym. So it was one of these things where, and it was grade 11. It wasn't grade 11 co-ed at that point, was it? It was weight training. It was weight training at that point. So I had to go, but I didn't really have to go. You know what I mean? Like sometimes, and I shouldn't say this, but athletes get a pass, and it's I took advantage of it for sure. And like I said, charmed people here and there, and I played off of my mom and my dad and got them to sign me out here and there. So it was like sometimes like the left hand didn't know what the right hand was doing, and then you get a call from the principal. It's like, yeah, you missed like 14 days of class, and I was like, no, I didn't, kind of thing, right? And so I started skipping, then I was driving, and then you start going out late at night, you start partying, and I never got to party with any of my friends when I was younger, or just period, because I was always at a tournament, Friday nights, going to bed early, you just couldn't do anything. So I started drinking, and I found out that I loved beer, so it was just, I started going down probably like not the greatest path, and I got into not too much trouble in high school, but I made it through. But the bad habits basically put me on a path of not being able to get everything done that I needed to do, like focus on my schoolwork, focus on my training, because after taking the grade 11 year off, I came back in grade 12, still made it to OFSA, still made the finals, was still one of the fastest of my age class, but I was just lucky and super blessed with my talent. And then everything kind of slapped me in the face like a brick at the end of that grade 12 year, when all my friends left, went away to college or university, got their scholarships, and I was left sitting in the upper cafeteria with younger kids.
So you stayed an extra year after grade 12.
I stayed an extra year, and I justified it by saying that I took my grade 12 year. I wasn't strong as I should have been because I took the grade 11 year off and I was hurt and stuff like that, blah, blah, blah. So I wanted to just take home a gold medal in my final year, get a scholarship, go down south and become a professional athlete.
Okay. So that's really interesting to hear, because I think we don't I don't always think about that. Like one, you took off grade 11, right? So it's like you already, some of your friends like were kind of like moving on when you were taking your time to explore your athletics. And were you working during that time as well? What did that year off look like?
I could work at one point in time, but it wasn't reasonable. Whether I was like, yeah, I need this day off and that day off for like a practice or whatever the case, because I'd still attend practices and stuff like that. So I didn't really work, but and I didn't really feel like I was missing out on anything either, because I knew I was still just as fast, if not faster, than a lot of the people that I was training with. So I was just like, I just need to get better. And once I'm better, it's game over. So I didn't think too much of it. I was extremely comfortable at where I was at. And I have this quote that I always say. I don't say it too often because I think it's like super controversial, but comfort is a self-tightening noose. And you get too comfortable in a position, in a situation, and you can end up shooting yourself in the foot. And that's exactly what I did to myself in high school.
Okay. As we're moving along here, I see an awesome question that I just got to throw in here as we continue along this journey from Frank. Really love the One Love poster, Anthony. Are you a fan of reggae and Marley? Does music play a role in your life and inspire you?
I love all music. It's I don't really discriminate. It's one of those things where, again, I don't really take in the words a lot of the time. It's the beat, the flow, the rhythm that kind of gets me going, and I hear it and the body just kind of gets moving, and it is what it is. For cycling, once I get into a rhythm and the cadence, it's really good. So there's like high tempo music, EDM, crunk, all sorts of stuff I'll listen to when I'm riding, just to kind of, pump me up a little bit. But yeah, no, music I'd like to say I play quite a bit of music. I'm loud, so I don't like too much quiet, but music plays quite a role, I'd say, for sure.
Now we're in your grade 12 year, and it's coming to the end of the year, and you're kind of making those decisions about the next steps. Perhaps you were even hoping for or considering like maybe there'd be a scholarship opportunity. Take us to that moment.
So, when you're in school and they're like, this school's coming, sign up for this college presentation and do this and do that. I didn't sign up for one. I was like, I'm going to the States. I'm getting a scholarship. I know where I'm going. I don't have to go to any of these because I knew that I was going to get a scholarship. I knew how good I was. And it was only a matter of time before the letters started to come in. I figured because we were in Canada, it was taking a lot longer for those schools to get their letters to me. Because when I won that race in grade 10 at OFSA, the Ohio State track coach had come down to me and said, hey, great race, looking good, keep it up. We're our eyes on you. And this is Ohio State. I knew who Ohio State was, massive Division I school in the States. And they're like, where's your parents? We can't talk to you. You're too young. So I kept that Ohio State book for how many years? But it was just one of those things where I knew I was going down south. Didn't have to worry about all that other stuff, like the presentations, but didn't really look into going down to any of the schools either. I just wasn't super, what's the word I'm looking for here? Not gung-ho, but... You
didn't pursue it.
Exactly.
Pursue you.
Yeah. I thought I was the ish,
Well, you sound like you were the ish, but I guess like there's still some, I guess you still have to maybe make the outreach, in some circumstances.
For sure. I was humble as like a person and an athlete for the most part. I didn't think that I was like better than anybody really. It's just that I just was like, everything kind of always came easy to me. People kind of was like, oh, it's Anthony. Just, it's okay if he's not here today. You know what I mean? So high school, like I said, I really took advantage, and like I go back now and I look at my teachers and they're like, oh, we love you. I'm like, I love you too. Like, I'm sorry. I was such a jerk, and but I learned so much now. It's good to reflect and go back and talk to kids now and be like, listen, don't do what I did, because I was an idiot and I could be so much further ahead. Like, just to think that, if my mom would always say, things that you do today will have a lasting impact for the rest of your life. So be careful what you do, make wise decisions. And there was times when I would jump head first and I didn't think at all.
So then you had to, I guess, make a decision about the next steps. You start to realize, okay, like maybe I'm not seeing any of these offers coming in. How did you decide your next steps?
So basically what happened was, my victory lap year, that grade 13, I went to, or was it grade 12? I forget. Honestly, it's all getting mushed together now, but it was definitely that grade 13 year, because I ran at Terry Fox, and this was OFSA. They had some Lionel kid touted to win. And I'm like, are you guys dumb? Like, he's younger than me, and I've been training. Like, I still was partying. Like, all these bad habits had just only persisted, gotten worse. My life, like, I was living like a high school dropout bum, and I wasn't even there yet. But I'll tell you about that in a second. And I got to that track, and when I should have been just focused the weekend before, I was out partying, and I just knew that, like, something was a little off. I felt great. I was in amazing shape. And when I got down on the blocks that time, I was like, I'm going to show you guys what I got. And the gun went off. I came into those blocks faster than I ever have in my life. And it's 8 steps to that first hurdle. And I think I got to like 7.5. I looked up, and the hurdle was like inches away from my face. And I didn't even have time to jump over it. I had literally got to it so fast that I ran right through it. And ideally, you don't want to touch a hurdle at all in a race. And over the next 100 meters, I ran down first and second place. And at the finish line, it took them 10 minutes to figure out who won the race with a photo finish. And when it all was said and done, I lost by 2/100ths of a second, and I was in third place. I kicked the fence. One of the officials was like, take it easy because you're going to get disqualified. And I walked off the track because I knew at that point I had screwed up. Everything that I had worked for, I'd thrown out the window. So immediately, a coach comes walking over to me. He had a blue cap on, blue jacket, from this small junior college school in Iowa. I think they had like 2 stoplights in the entire city. And he's like, amazing race. I want to offer you a 60% scholarship to our school. Call your guidance department. Tell them to fax over your transcripts. You got early acceptance. Wow. And this is right at the side of the track. I'm still sweating. And so I was like, thank you, God. This is absolutely amazing. This is everything that I wanted. But then immediately I remembered that I was an idiot. And because of all the school that I had skipped, I was short credits. I had all my mandatory credits, but it was like electives, like gym and photography I didn't have, like that I had failed essentially because of attendance that I didn't have. And at that point I was driving home super embarrassed, just knowing that how am I going to tell somebody like my coaches and stuff like that I got a scholarship offer, and they're like, well, you can't go, you dumbass, because you don't have your credits and you've been here for 5 years. Like, what are you going to do? And at that point, life slapped me in the face. That night, I got home from OFSA, and there was a wedding that the girl that I was dating went to at the time. I ended up going to that wedding, open bar and stuff like that. And it was just a regrettable night. One of those regrettable nights. And that's where I say the downturn started. I was like depressed because I'd be walking through the mall and people were like, hey, what are you still doing here? We thought you'd be gone by now, like down south on a scholarship. And I'd be like, yeah, well, all these excuses started. All my relationships would suffer. I remember one day my mom just crying as I came in the house. And she's like, what happened to my son? Because I'm hanging out with the wrong crowd, drinking. I'm like, I'm not coming home. It was just, I was in a very bad place. I got into like credit card debt, couldn't get a job because nobody wanted to hire me. I ended up going to Apple One, working in factories. And then I got in trouble with the law. And a lot of people, nobody actually knows. I think this is the first time that I've probably ever said it, really, besides the podcast a couple of weeks ago. And no one probably listened to that yet. So it's one of the things that, again, slapped me in the face. And it wasn't, thank God, like anything super serious where I'm like going to jail. But it was enough of an experience to be like, you really screwed up, Lou. And with everything else that was going on, like, I really realized, and seeing my mom cry like that, it hit home, because the one thing I never wanted to do was just let my mom down or embarrass her, right? And to think that that's what I was doing, it hurt. So I started to try and figure my stuff out. Went to the YMCA after my mom brought me to this conference, and she's like, she saw me maturing, and she was in this company, and I could see the change in her mindset. So I'm like, let me go see what this place is all about, this company, Primerica. And I absolutely love that company. The mindset, the stuff that they teach, the way that they make you think, the family like atmosphere, it showed me a different side of life. And it reignited.
Really sorry. I've got the ringer off here, but for some reason it's going through my computer.
No,
Sorry
you're
about
good.
that.
You're good. But I was saying it reignited this fire in me. I saw this motivational speaker, and he was a lot like me in high school and went to college to meet a lot of the girls. And I was like, hey, that's why I was going to college too. And his story really resonated with me. And now he makes over $2.5 million a year. And I was like, if he can do it, I can do it. You know, I was always like, I'm on this level playing field with everybody. Like, nobody was created any better than anybody else. We're all equals. We all have the same 24 hours in a day. Get up and get it done kind of thing, right? So I decided, he said, if you find a job that you love, it's not like working a day in your life. So I decided to get into mechanics because I loved cars. I liked going fast. I was always breaking my mom's car. And I'm like, I got to figure out how to fix this thing so I can save some money, right? And so I got into, I'm like looking at diesel mechanics apprenticeships, because you work on the big rigs, and out west was the boom with oil, and these guys are getting paid almost $100, $150 an hour kind of thing when it's all said and done. And I was like, I can make some serious money. So I started looking for a diesel mechanic apprenticeship. And then I started looking for just regular anything apprenticeship after that, because after 30 diesel mechanic resumes that went out, I didn't get one bite back. But that's how I ended up at Autoboys, which was kind of like your kind of general maintenance automotive shop, but then on the weekends and at nights they did high performance race car stuff. So it was like a match made in heaven.
Okay. Wow. So much there to the story and to unpack it, and just like listening to you describe that period of time that I think, you know, it might differ in age, but all of us, I think, in those late teens, early 20s, somewhere in there, question sort of what those next steps are for us. And, you know, in all of us in some way fall off the path, right? And need to find a way back, you know? So that's really interesting to hear that you were able to kind of navigate. And even though you were feeling down about a few things in your life, and that is a hard moment, like what you described it, you kind of, you know, it's just a comment, but that feeling where you were the athletic star, you know, at school, and then your peers know you as that, your teachers know you as that, and then to feel like you've maybe, and this is the thing, and it's kind of related to what your mom was saying, and I know someone who's really struggled at a university level with their courses, with like making sure they get all the right credits and that sort of thing. And it's like just missing one or two, it's like this compounding effect, right? And then like it feels really small at the beginning, but then it's like a year passes or 2 years pass, and it's like, oh my goodness, you know, I didn't get the things that I needed to get. And you know, that feeling, like that moment where you kind of think like, okay, maybe people are judging me. Maybe I'm not living up to my full potential.
That's it. Not living up to my full potential is probably one of my biggest fears. And that's what I realized that I was doing, was not living up to my full potential. So it just got me back on track pretty well.
Okay. So now you're working, you got your job as a mechanic, and how long were you working there?
11 months. It was a dream job. Essentially, I got thrown into the fire I was cutting, welding exhaust, pulling apart engines, doing brake jobs. And as an apprentice anywhere else, I probably just would have been sweeping floors for the first 11 months.
Yeah, so it's very, very hands-on opportunity.
Yeah.
During that time, did you sort of imagine that this was something that you were going to be doing for a long period?
Well, I never thought that I'd be a mechanic. I didn't like getting my hands dirty. So like even eating chicken wings, I'd eat with a fork up until a certain point in my life. And my mom's like, how are you going to be a mechanic if you don't like eating your food with your hands? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. But I could see myself doing it. I enjoyed it. But then when I went to Primerica, they're like, look at the guy to the left of you, look at the guy to the right of you. And 5 years down the road, 25 years down the road, that's what you're going to be doing. That's what you're going to look like. And I was like, I got to get the hell out of here. So I knew that I needed to do something else in order to fulfill my life and just, yeah.
So Primerica, at what point, I'm trying to get the timeline right here. At what point were you kind of doing the mechanic thing? At what point did Primerica come into your world, and what was the timeline like there?
It was all pretty well, I'd say within age 19 and a half to 20, to my accident, because my mom was actively in the business and she still is. She's a regional vice president in the business right now. So yeah.
You were doing both?
Yeah. Yeah. I wasn't doing Primerica really. I was trying to, but not really. But I was just kind of
inspired by the mindset.
Exactly.
So that leads us, that takes us to, you're working there, but you're dreaming of more and kind of imagining what your life could look like. It sounds like at every aspect of your journey, like you were always dreaming big and always imagining the next thing.
Yep.
And one day in 2009, an accident happens.
Yep.
What do you remember about that day?
Quite a bit. It was regular day. I went to the shop. My boss was there kind of early, which was a little bit weird. He said, there's these 2 scrap cars. I got to go to the scrap yard this afternoon. And I was just like, whatever, that doesn't mean anything to me because I have 4 or 5 alignments to get done today. So I'll probably be doing that all day. When lunch came, I had finished 4 alignments. It was an amazing day. The vibe in the shop was just great. It didn't feel like work, just like that motivational speaker had said, because I loved it. Music was playing, sun was out, like everybody was super happy. I ate a whole bunch of food for lunch, and then I was sitting in front of my toolbox just texting. Somebody came over and said, can you help us bring these cars down the street to the scrap here? And I was like, I'm on my lunch, but whatever, I'll do it because I'm a nice guy. Took my cell phone, threw it on top of my toolbox, and I got up and I started walking over towards these 2 cars. And that's when I got that first kind of gut instinct feeling and letting me know that something wasn't right. And I said to them, how are we getting these cars down the street? And they're like, we're going to bump them down the road. And basically bumping down the road is you're using one vehicle to push another vehicle. And you can do this on the lot, like in the parking lot, to move one car to the back if it's dead or whatever. You can push a car. But I'd never done it on the road before. And so I'm like, okay, I'll figure it out. I trusted my boss. I didn't think anything would go wrong. And just being 21 and naive, I was just like, whatever, let's just do this. So I continue walking over to the car, and then I get the second gut instinct feeling, and it was like, didn't you guys empty all the fluids out of these cars? Like engine oil, brake fluid, gas, power steering fluid. I'm like, how are we supposed to operate this vehicle? And they're like, don't worry, there's enough brake fluid in the line so that the car will stop. And you put the key in the on position in the ignition so that the steering wheel doesn't lock up. And I was like, okay, I can do this. And no power steering. It's 2 hands, and I'm a strong guy. Hand over hand to make the corner at the end of McKay there to go towards the scrapyard. So it's about 600, 700 meters down the road. And basically my boss pushes my buddy out into the road first, me out into the road second. And that's why I say the choo-choo train starts. The caboose of the choo-choo train when they start going. So my boss hit me, and then I'd hit my buddy. Then he'd hit me, and then I hit my buddy. And we just kept doing that until we're have enough momentum to be moving smoothly along the road at like 60K an hour, 50 to 60K an hour, 2 hands on the steering wheel, key in the on position so the steering wheel doesn't lock up. And we make it around the bend. As we get to the driveway of the scrapyard, my buddy's right front wheel falls off and he slides into the curb.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. So I'm kind of shaking my head like, this is absolutely crazy because it was a wild ride. I knew we probably shouldn't be doing what we were doing. And thank God we made it to this place safely. My boss tries to push me up onto the weighing scale, but that doesn't work. So he jumps out, runs into the scrapyard, grabs the bobcat operator that operates the little yellow construction thing. And he says, can you push this car up onto the weighing scale? And the guy's like, yeah. So he comes out, pushes me up onto the weighing scale, and I coast to a stop. So basically they're getting the weight of the vehicle so they can give you money for how much the scrap metal's worth and blah, blah, blah. So the green light comes on, signals that it's time for me to leave the scale. I am now getting pushed off again by this bobcat, just shaking my head like, this is crazy. Looking to the left to find a spot to park the car and jump out and go back to the shop. And out of the corner of my right eye, before I even had a chance to react, I see the massive crane with the magnet and the claws dangling coming at me, and then it crushes me inside the car. He then proceeds
right over top of you?
The car.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And then he proceeded to pick me up with the claws to about 15 feet in the air. And that's when the bobcat operator jumped out and he's like, there's someone still inside the car. And the crane operator panicked and dropped me from 15 feet. And I came crashing back down to the ground. And that's kind of like when I woke up inside the car with the roof right here beside my head, my hand still on the steering wheel. And I was kind of squished over towards the door like this.
Wow. At what point did you black out in that moment?
The initial impact knocked me out. And then when he dropped me, I woke back up. So I was seeing him climb out of the crane and he was pretty well in tears. He called 911. And then the ironic thing about the whole thing, my buddy that was supposed to be pushed on first was the first guy at my car door. He tried to open it. He's super weak. Couldn't get it open. My boss came and almost ripped the door off the hinges because the whole car had been crushed. And then the roof.
The roof. Oh, the roof.
So the roof came down, and then basically when he used the claws, it went underneath the door.
Okay.
Yeah, and then one claw came in the trunk, another claw came in the top of the door on the passenger side, and then the last claw came in right through the dashboard. And yeah, it was nuts. It was absolutely crazy. I don't don't even know how to do this. I was going to see if we could share the screen here, but I won't even try to do it because I know I'll break something and share a picture. But it was, the roof was crushed all the way down. So you know what it was like? It was like a convertible without the front window, without the windshield. So you could picture a car just like that. And no roof, and then me sitting inside of that, essentially.
Did you, you hear things like people go numb or like you're in shock? Like, were you feeling pain at the point? Like, what was that like? Where were you like when you landed?
So my buddy Kyle comes up. He's like, dude, can you feel everything? And he's like knelt down beside me. And I was like, and I could feel the pain in my arms. I could feel the pain in my torso because the lumbar supports from the seat basically had given me a bear hug and crushed me in the seat and then squished me. So I broke or crushed a lot of my ribs. And it was really difficult for me to breathe. But when I went to move my legs, nothing happened. So I reached out with my right arm or my right hand, slapped my right leg, and it fell over to my left leg. And I was kind of like, my legs are broken. And then I was like, you feel some pain. But then I was like, there's no pain. So I didn't really know what was going on. And I just knew because I watched a lot of TV that I had to stay conscious because I was still really woozy and just remain calm as I could be.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yeah. And so from that, eventually 911 gets there. They're getting you out. Like, are you present for all of that? Like, you remember that?
Yeah. The firefighters, they put a blue tarp over my face because they're about to cut the roof off with the jaws of life. Glasses flying everywhere. When they cut the first A-pillar right here, that one beam that goes right by your head, the car sprung out from the pressure when it was crushed. So I could breathe a little bit easier. And then they had to lift the dash off of my legs because the dash had fallen down. They stabilized my back, pulled me out. The paramedics were there. They got me on the stretcher, asked me all the questions. Do you know your name? Do you know what happened? I gave them the password to my phone to call my mom. So my mom ended up showing up on scene in time to see the helicopter fly in. After they strapped me down to the back brace and told me that we can't transport you on the ground because your injuries are too severe.
Okay, and then you get in the helicopter and you head to Sunnybrook Hospital.
Yeah.
And how long, before your time, how long during your time at Sunnybrook before you get a diagnosis, before people tell you, your condition?
I don't know how long it was. I think it was a couple hours. But I remember being in Emerge, lying down and looking up at the ceiling with my mom, my sister in the room crying. And the doctor's like, your son will never walk again.
Those are the words that, you hear in the movies and you just dread, you dread that moment. You dread hearing that. Anybody would. An athlete, I think, just adds a whole different complexity. What was your reaction in that moment?
I went into shock. I was still strapped down to the board with the neck brace and everything still on, so I couldn't move. But I just started puking, straight projectile puking right up into the air, and it was a stream, and it came right back down to my face, my eyes, and the nurse just came over and cleared out my eyes, took a tube, shoved it in my nose, so it went up my nose, down the back of my throat, and into my stomach, so I just didn't choke on the puke and die, essentially. And I blacked out at that point. Next thing I really remember is family being there and going to surgery the next morning, finding out that I broke my back at my belly button and became a T9 paraplegic. So no function or feeling from the waist down. And I have 2 rods and 8 screws that are still inside my back that were initially put there to stabilize me.
My God. And
and I had a minor fracture at the bottom of my neck. So I broke, I'm pretty well close to breaking my neck, which would have changed a lot of this. Once you break your neck, anything above kind of your nipple line, you're kind of classified a quadriplegic. And that's when you have impairments in all 4 limbs. So.
And, the tagline that I've seen and in some of your speeches and some of the stuff that you talk about is I should be dead, or I could have been dead based on that. At what moment did you start thinking that way? At what moment does it kind of flip from, this awful experience, this awful diagnosis, to you sort of reminding yourself, I can't believe I just survived that?
Oh, immediately. I remember watching the movie Eagle Eye. I don't know how many people have seen it, but there's a scene, and you go through a scrapyard, or they're driving through the scrapyard, and all these cranes are trying to grab the car. And I'm just kind of when you see what that crane and magnet can do to a full-size car and just crumple it and make it look like tinfoil that you played with in your kitchen, I realize that the Lord saved me for a higher purpose. They said when he looked in the car, it was like I was in the cocoon. I have no real physical scratches except for a little scar on my hand right here that I had from the glass that was stuck in it. But to think that it comes down with 20,000 tons of force or something like that. And I don't have a brain injury. I'm so blessed. And I knew immediately just how blessed I was to be alive. And it was just one of those things where, yeah.
Now, the recovery process of that, I'm sure you were in the hospital for a lengthy period of time. There was what did that look like? What did the rehabilitation and what did that sort of recovery process look like for you?
It's absolute hell, but it was amazing too, to see how loved I really was. I had family, friends coming in from all over the place. My one aunt gave up weeks of her life. She was a nurse. She came up from the States, stayed with me in the hospital, made sure that I was getting all the proper care that I needed. Staff was great. I spent 1 week in ICU, intensive care unit at Sunnybrook, and they had to limit the amount of time that people could talk to me because I had so many visitors. I think it was 30 seconds per person. I was like, no, all drugged up. No, let them stay. And it was just it was absolutely amazing. And I had friends sleeping on the floor in the hospital. And when you think about that, because they just didn't want to leave. I felt so loved. So after that, it was 3.5 weeks on the trauma ward. And then I went to Lyndhurst, which was a rehab facility. And that's when life really like slapped me in the face again. Like learning to use my wheelchair, peeing my pants, learning to take number 2 again. Like, oh my God, everything was different. Shaving, eating, like everything was different. It was, my God, it was 3 months there. Like you don't expect that you leave home one day and you're just not going to come back. I had to share a room with 3 other gentlemen, and you heard, seen, and smelled things you didn't want to hear, see, or smell. It was the most humbling experience of my life.
And you're like, just the in the tragedy. What I hear in your story is like an immense love story, and not only in the people that were there for you and sleeping on the floor and, you know, filling the hospital. There's people in this chat tonight who are like just sending you so much love, proud of your bravery. This story still gives me chills. I love that you are not alone through all this. Just such beautiful comments and support and community. But I think, you know, one of the things that comes to mind, or that I would be thinking, is there's that moment, the tragedy happens, you feel like gratitude to be alive. You are also terrified, and this is all new and all happening so fast. There is shock. It's really like a state of just figuring out, like adjusting to this new life. Was there a point, if you're being honest, like, was there a point where it's like you felt like you really just had to kind of like make a decision on how you were going to live your life from then on out? Because I feel like on the one hand, you could really just choose to hang back, give up, or kind of, I'm going to change the way that I'm going to change. This is not the course that I had planned, but I'm going to live this to my fullest.
Well, it was pretty well immediately. There was no recourse. And I'm crying because I choked on my coffee.
Oh,
But,
gotta watch out for Kevin the Minion.
It was immediate. I had no recourse. The love that I had, it was when I saw people walking into the room, they didn't know how to really approach me. They were like, oh my gosh, he's in a wheelchair. Like, he's lying down, like, hi, Anthony. And I'm like, what up? And they're like, oh. And so I knew that like the way that I took it was just like the way that everybody else would take it too. And I took it and ran, so to say. I got love and respect tattooed on my biceps, and I got family first tattooed on my back because I realized what life was when this happened to me. And it was just, it was right away. It was immediate. There was this one movie, again, this clip from that motivational speaker that I saw from this movie Facing the Giants that kept replaying in my mind. And basically it's this little football segment scene, and I encourage everybody to go look at it after on YouTube. And the guy is basically counting out the team before a big game on Friday. He's like, yeah, we can't beat them. And the coach is like, listen, you're a leader. And if everybody sees you taking it like we're going to lose, everybody thinks we've lost already. So you got to go in there knowing that we're going to win this. And so I decided to take that mindset, that attitude going forward. And that's really what drove me and allowed everybody else to kind of help push me up and just get me through the whole situation.
Now, how do we get from, and we're into the last 20 minutes, my gosh, Anthony, I could chat with you for hours. This is just so powerful. And I think I speak for everybody who's on this chat tonight. You know, somebody typing in here, Anthony, you are my hero. Like, this is beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. The conversation.
Thank you.
How do you get from that rehabilitation state to deciding I would really like to I would like to continue my athletic journey, and I'd like to change the sport?
Natural transition again. It was just kind of like a gravitational pull. people like, you need to try wheelchair basketball. You need to try wheelchair basketball. And I was like, all right, I did. It's like, basketball's not my sport. Like, my mom loved it. She's like, she was so happy when I started playing basketball, but it wasn't fast enough for me. And then somebody lent me my hand cycle, or a hand cycle. I got on that thing, went on for a ride with my dad. He jumped on my old mountain bike, and it brought me a lot of joy to see it riding. And after a couple kilometers, I rode with the brake on. I'm like, Dad, I can't do this. I quit. And I had already made up my mind that I was going to try and go to the Paralympics for hand cycling. And I was just like, this is the hardest sport ever. I don't want to do this stupid stuff. And the brake was on. So I've been riding with the brake on, and I didn't know. We took the brake off, the bike rolled. I went down the hill, crashed the thing, and I'm like, yes, I love
it. Okay. That's amazing.
Yeah. That's how it happened.
I want to go fast. I feel like that's like a quote from a movie. What movie is that?
Like Ricky Bobby. I forget.
Ricky Bobby.
Talladega Nights or something like that.
And you actually have a couple things in common. Like, I know that's an awful character to be compared to, but you have some things in common with how you think, kind of like that if you're not first class type thing, you know?
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Very competitive spirit, and you like speed. So that was like, kind of like in you, and you knew that this is what you want to do.
Yep.
Absolutely love that. Okay. I have so many more questions. I want to make sure that I get to a couple of them here. One question, which was just kind of interesting about high school. Did you go to school with Corey Joseph, who also went to Pickering High School?
Yes, I did go to high school with Corey Joseph. I went to elementary school with Corey Joseph. I played basketball with Corey Joseph. I was one of the first persons to say Corey Joseph was going to the NBA, because Corey had an older brother, and everything that DeVoe did, Corey did a little bit better, and I could see it. And then Corey crossed me when he was like in grade 4, and I fell over, and I ran off the court, and I never ever played Corey ever again. And I knew that he was going to the NBA. So, yeah.
Biggie's saying, wow, they really have lots of talented athletes coming out of Pickering High School, it sounds like.
Pickering is a powerhouse.
Pickering is a powerhouse. Aunt Lisa from the States said she loves you, and your accident changed the way I look at life and the people in my life forever. Anthony, I'm sure there's so many lessons that you could say that came from that accident, that experience, that tragedy, but what would you say has been the greatest lesson that you've taken from that?
So on my door, I have written, things don't happen to you, they happen for you. And quite honestly, this accident saved my life. There were times when I'd be behind the wheel after a beer or two. And as I said, I didn't make the best decisions. I love speed. I was about to buy a motorcycle, and I could not wait to wheelie. Like, one of the first things I would have done was wheelie. And so I put down on a motorcycle, and it did 165 kilometers an hour in first gear. And there was 5 years left after that. So you can only imagine how fast that bike would have gone and what I would have done with it. So I'm kind of like not happy that this happened, but it really did save my life.
Denise says, Anthony has helped me even through my transition and has inspired me to keep fighting and look at life differently. So thank you for being you and being the light people need. Admire you, friend.
Thank you, Denise.
We have a question here from Melissa. As an athlete today, do you ever have moments during training when you have self-doubt? And if so, how do you push through it?
Every day, all the time. It's such a difficult sport, such a difficult task and undertaking to be a professional athlete, especially because like I don't get paid really, right? It's like a job. I have to run after sponsors. I got to post on social media and stuff like that. But there's a lot of doubt that creeps in, especially when you don't hit time standards, when you don't hit goals, when you get your ass handed to you for years straight, and you realize that you're going up against the best in the world, and you're not quite there yet. So one of the things that I do is I just kind of like remind myself that it's a process. You know, Rome wasn't built in a day, and it takes time to get to where you're at. And then you have to be consistent in whatever it is that you're doing. It's like, if you're not consistent, it's a lot more difficult to achieve a goal, and you'll fall off if you're just not sticking to it. It's so much more difficult to maintain that momentum if you stop and go and stop and go and stop and go. So even though you're doubting yourself, you just kind of have to push through, and that's where that mental toughness comes from.
And that's a great lead to this next question from Michelle, who says, Anthony, what is it that makes you want to be resilient?
Life, quite frankly, being alive. Like, there's so many times and so many people that don't wake up every day. You know, I realize how fortunate and blessed I am to simply be here, to be independent, to see, to enjoy the little joys of life, to stop and smell the roses, I guess, is what the simplest phrase or quote I can think of. It's just take time to realize and appreciate what you have around you and in your life, the people, you as a person, yourself. Like, it's wake up and just take that breath. Like, life, when you're this close to death, it really makes you feel alive. And that's kind of like why I think I love speed so much, because I know at any point in time, at anything above 60 kilometers an hour, if I make a little twitch or a wrong turn, or I go 2 inches to my left and I get run over by a car on the road, like, that's it. That's it. So it's just being alive, being able to be here and live is what keeps me going.
I gotta say, Anthony, I've interviewed quite a few people, but there is just something that is so like authentically joyful about your spirit. Like,
thank you.
It just like it comes throughout the entire conversation. And I just think it's been filled with so much wisdom, this conversation, the way that you look at things, the way that you reflect on things. And I know that many people here today and those in your life say you're one of the most positive people that they know. What are some of your best tips? Like, do you have like some daily practices? Do you have any routines that really help you center and help you keep that positive and focused mindset?
My mom's super positive. One of the things I would say is you have to surround yourself with positive people, because there's so many times when there's people in your life that, even if they don't mean to be negative, they're negative, and you have to be able to identify if that person is pushing you up or pulling you down, because at the end of the day, that's just negative stuff that's bringing your spirit down, that doesn't allow you to grow and blossom. And so being around positive people, for sure. Be careful what you listen to and what you take in. Social media is a great thing, but it could also be the worst thing in the world, especially if you let negative comments get to you, right? I hate looking at a comment section. I'm so happy people don't comment on my stuff. And I'm not famous because I couldn't deal with it, I don't think. It's crazy. So there's that. And then I listen to a whole bunch of stuff now too, like audiobook, motivational speakers, just things to keep the mind right, keep you focused, because there's so many times you just listen to garbage and you're just like, it's garbage. Like, why am I listening to somebody else talk about their life? Any
like recommendations for those, like books or speakers that you love listening to?
One of the best book I can definitely recommend right now that I loved, my favorite one is You Can't Hurt Me or Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. He was a U.S. Navy SEAL. Phenomenal book. He's super raunchy in it. He swears a lot, but he's super real and raw, and that's what I love and appreciate about it. And he really teaches you how to take an inner look at yourself. And until you look inside deep, you're not going to be able to. This is what I use. It's the airplane analogy. When they say put on your own mask first before you put on somebody else's mask, because if you pass out, you're not helping nobody. So that's kind of the basis that I took, and really just tried to work on my self-development, stuff like that.
Great recommendations. We got questions going on in the chat. It's a busy chat. I love it. Don Terry asking, how do you manage to fit in all the training along with all of your work and community activities?
It's very difficult. And now I'll give props to my manager, Jill. because I was trying to juggle it for the first couple of years, and I obviously wasn't doing that well of a job. Like, we got things done with my girlfriend, and my mom, and her mom jumped on as my first manager and really got the ball rolling because I had no idea what I was doing in terms of sponsorship and fundraising. So again, thank you to them, because my girlfriend's been a huge rock too in my just cycling career, and it's not easy. So trying to juggle the sports and figuring out how I can make money and speak at schools and working with the wheelchair. And sometimes like things flare up, and I don't necessarily always share what's going on in my wheelchair life that necessarily holds me back from getting out and doing more. But it was really difficult. And when Jill stepped into the picture, it took a lot of the stress off my plate, like emails and replying to people for speaking presentations and stuff like that. And I could focus on the bike and really hitting that national time standard, which I did, and got me to a position of becoming a nationally carded athlete. And I just received funding from the government. So
Congrats.
it's something that I've been working towards my entire life. And I think the next step is just putting on that national jersey. So I can't wait. But it's been a struggle, and I still do struggle with it on a day-to-day basis because I'm so scatterbrained and A-type personality. I just want to get it done and do this, but it really helps to have Jill in there and making sure that I'm on track and reminding me that I had a fireside chat tonight and not to be late.
Don also wants to know who makes the best ribs you've ever eaten.
Oh, Lord Jesus. Don, you can get me in trouble here. It's Don is definitely number one for now. Until somebody else comes out with a better rack of ribs, Don has the best set of ribs for sure.
Don, love that. Love Don's self-serving questions here. That's great.
He's the best.
Oh, shout out to Jill. Look at this. Shout out to Jill for everything that she's doing to support you here. Okay, we've got a couple more amazing questions here. We're down to the last 8 minutes, and I want to make sure we wrap up to finish on time for everybody. Jennifer wants to know who inspires you, Anthony.
Honestly, my mom. She has always been my rock, and she's always been the one person that I wanted to make proud. She told me, you can do anything that you put your mind to. And I can honestly say, if it wasn't for her and the way that she raised me, I wouldn't be who I am today.
Shout out to Mom. And apparently everybody's going over to Don's for a party.
Yep.
After
we're going to have to cut holes in our masks or something and shove the ribs through. Like, I don't know, but I don't know if it'd be worth catching it, but they're pretty damn good. I'm not going to lie.
Oh my gosh. Saeed wants to know, have you thought about doing other sports?
Oh, I can't wait. I'm doing until other sports. I want to sit ski. I want to play more basketball. I have a brand new basketball chair that I want to cross train in, and I am cross training in when I'm right now lifting weights and stuff like that. So there's basketball, there's sit skiing, rowing. I'm building a race car right now. So yeah, I think the next sport will probably be racing / skiing. Like, I race in my spare time right now. I take the car to the track and stuff like that. So that's going to be an absolutely amazing project that you guys should keep up with, because it'll be the only one like it in the world. One of a couple. And yeah.
Okay. And I think, we're in Do It in Durham week. We've got this global entrepreneurship week. And maybe even if you don't necessarily think of yourself that way, you are really, like, I feel like so many industries are changing, but like athletes for sure, musicians, all of these sorts of careers, like, you have to be entrepreneurial. Like, it's you trying to find your sponsorships. It's you trying to get your grants. Of course, you have a team. It's awesome to have someone like Jill, like, helping you out with that. But have you learned any key lessons that you think would be helpful to share with everyone here today, like, about like the business side of what it is that you do, like trying to find sponsors and trying to keep that going?
Most definitely. So I do see myself as an entrepreneur. I just haven't made that entrepreneurial money yet. Like, I established a nonprofit organization to help people with disabilities. And so working on getting that going, but a lot of things have taken the backseat just to cycling. So accessibility consulting, I just got certified in. So I'm established a business in that. But what I would say to entrepreneurs is one of the biggest things is keep your commitment to your commitment. This is something that I've heard. It's very difficult, and being an entrepreneur, it's probably the hardest thing that you will do, because there oftentimes isn't somebody that's pushing you to get going and to get up every morning, get up, shower, make sure you're out the door on time, and get everything that you need to get done. So keep your commitment to your commitment. I have a list right here actually of a bunch of things that I would take training with me when I go away. And so I'm going to go through a couple of them right now. I am the captain of my ship and the master of my fate is one of them. You can expect victory, or you can't expect victory by speaking defeat. That's another one. Work ethic separates the good from the great. And, being an entrepreneur, you have to have great work ethic and just kind of sticking to it, because things don't happen on their own. You can't expect something to be done tomorrow if you don't do it today. Right?
Yes.
This is more of like a cycling one. This one came from a great friend of mine. He says, never give up, think outside of the box and make things happen. Always do what you say you will do in a timely manner. Don't be shy and always try to be positive. Think about what you do now and how it may affect you later. Keep smiling and share your enthusiasm whenever and wherever you can. So those are a couple of things that I would say to some of the entrepreneurs. It's just it's a constant grind. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be pretty. A lot of the work is done in the dark. And there's times when I'll be getting on the bike right now and this light above me will be off. The light in the kitchen will be off. The TV might be on, or some music might be on, but it's dark in here. And I have the numbers on my little screen in front of my face, and people don't know. They don't see the hard work below the surface. It's just the tip of the iceberg when they see the post about, oh, I got a new time standard or whatever it may be. They don't see when I puke on my floor. They see the puddles of sweat, but they don't see the puke. They don't see the discomfort. They don't, you know what I mean? So for those entrepreneurs out there, I know it's not easy, especially with COVID this year. It has really sucked. It, I'm sure, has derailed some of you, especially when you've taken that leap to leave your 9 to 5 and start something on your own. And it feels like you just got kicked in the face when you're already down. But I will tell you and just kind of give you this little push and hope of faith that it will get easier. It will be the end. I compare it to a mountain that I climb in Arizona. You can walk beside me as I climb this mountain because I climb it so slow. But when it's all said and done, I've climbed 26 miles, reached over 9,000 feet in elevation, and I have accomplished the greatest thing in my life that I've ever accomplished. So that's just kind of the way that you got to look at it.
It's a grind. Startup grind. This is why it all flows together. That is some solid business advice. And one quote that came to mind as you were just chatting there at the end about all the stuff that nobody sees. We only see highlight reels. We don't see the behind the scenes stuff, is a quote from Michael Phelps. And he says, we're rewarded in the light for what we do in the dark. I really love that. It's all the things that you're doing that we all don't see, that the training, the hard work, the sweat, all of those things. And each of us in our own life that we need to be doing for our businesses or for any goal that we're working towards, it's not the flashy camera moments that are the moments that push you and propel you forward. It's everything that happens on the hard days, the days where you don't feel like getting out of bed, and the days where you don't feel like doing something that you really need to do. Those are the days that really shape us and make us who we are. So, Anthony, this was just absolutely powerful. Where can people listening today connect with you outside of this chat? And is there any way that we can support you? How can we support you?
So you can follow me just by typing in my name anywhere, basically, Anthony Lue. My Facebook will pop up. I'm on Instagram. I have my own website, anthonylue.com. I try and post on there at least once a month. I'm super horrible with that, but I promise I'm going to get better with posting. I have a YouTube channel, so you can look me up there, Anthony Lue. On Instagram, anthony.lue, and that's probably where you get your daily dose of Kevin and me, everything else that I'm doing. If you like cars and speed, at Tony2JZ, that's my car page, and that's where you'll see a lot of the racing, the modifications that I'm doing to the car, things like that. Where else is there? I don't really tweet. I should probably get on TikTok, but I feel like I'm getting old now.
You got it. Okay. And how about sponsorship? I see there's like a button on your site. You're always on the lookout for more.
Most definitely.
Sponsors, independent sponsors, people to contribute to your journey to the 2021 Paralympic Games.
Exactly. I'm definitely looking for all the help that I can get. You can go to the website. You can email me directly at alue8@live.com or anthonylue8@gmail.com. Or just go to the website, click the button. There's a get in contact form as well there too. Or hit me up on any of my social media. GoFundMe, just type in my name and it pops up with my picture. But GoFundMe takes a percentage, so just hit me up directly.
Amazing. We are going to be cheering for you all the way. I don't know about everybody in this chat, but I know what I'm looking forward to in August, right? 2021. We got the, is that the next Paralympic Games? I want to make sure I got the date right.
Yep. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. We're going to be cheering for Anthony. You got this 2021. We're all going to be rooting for you. As Anthony mentioned, you can search his name on Google, and that'll really point you in the right directions on all the social media pages. People want to see Kevin. They want to say goodbye to Kevin too. We just want to say thank you so much, Anthony, for taking the time to be here tonight, to share this story with us. This is just the kind of pick me up that I think and feel good inspiration that I needed tonight. And I think so many of you in the chat feel the exact same way. What's really defines a person in life is how they handle the challenges that come their way. And you have just proven time and time again to be somebody who is a fighter and who continues to persevere no matter what obstacle is placed in front of them. So it's been such an honor to interview you. We're rooting for you. Anthony Lue, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
And shout out to Spark Center, Business Advisory Council of Durham, Do It in Durham Week for making all of this happen. We have some amazing people here in Durham region, right here, right? Shout out here, okay? We have amazing people, big ideas, lots of ambition. Let's put Durham on the map. We're all working to do that in our own ways, celebrate where we come from, celebrate our friends, our family, our community. They really are the people who shape us into who we're meant to be. So thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful evening and stay tuned for the next Startup Grind Durham event. Take care.